You're standing at a funeral. The air is thick with floral perfume and unspoken grief. The widow is seated in the front row, shoulders trembling, eyes vacant, clutching a tissue that's already shredded to pieces. People file past, offering their condolences. You step forward, your mouth opens, and in 5 seconds, you could either be the hands of Jesus to her shattered heart, or you could speak words that will haunt her for years, words that will make her question God, question her faith, and retreat into isolation. I'm going to tell you something that might offend you, but I need you to hear it. Most Christians are absolutely terrible at comforting the grieving, and it's not because we don't care, it's because we don't know what not to say. Proverbs 25:11 says, "A word fitly spoken is like apples of gold in pictures of silver." But the inverse is also true. A word spoken carelessly is like a grenade thrown into an open wound. Today, I'm giving you 8 words you should never say to a grieving widow. This isn't a suggestion, it's a biblical warning that could save someone's faith from shattering. Number 1, everything happens for a reason. Job's friends walked into his life after he lost everything, his children, his wealth, his health. They sat with him in silence for 7 days, and that silence was the most beautiful gift they could have given him. But then Eliphaz opened his mouth. He essentially told Job that his suffering must be punishment for hidden sin. He tried to justify the tragedy with a reason, and God later rebuked him for it. When you tell a widow that everything happens for a reason, you are assigning divine purpose to her devastation. You're saying God orchestrated the death of her husband for some cosmic plan. She is not comforted by that. She is horrified. She begins to wonder what kind of God would kill her husband to teach someone else a lesson. The better response is silence, or simple tears, or the words, "I don't understand either, but I'm here." Quotable line, grief doesn't need a reason, it needs a presence. Number 2, he's in a better place. This is perhaps the most common and yet the most dangerous phrase in the Christian grieving vocabulary. The widow knows heaven is real. She knows her husband is with Jesus. She has memorized 2 Corinthians 5:8, to be absent from the body is to be present with the Lord. But right now, she is not in heaven. She is here, on earth, staring at an empty pillow and a half-drunk coffee cup. Imagine telling a mother who just lost her son that he's in a better place. She knows, but she doesn't care about that right now. She cares that she will never hold him. Telling a widow her husband is in a better place minimizes her grief. It bypasses her pain and jumps straight to theological bullet points. She doesn't need theology. She needs your tears. Romans 12:15 commands us to weep with them that weep. That's it. Weeping is a language theology cannot translate. Quotable line, heaven is his address, but earth is her heartbreak, and that's where you need to meet her.
"You're so strong, I could never." Job's wife said something similar. She told him to curse God and die. It sounds cruel, but I believe what she was really saying was, "You're being too strong right now, and I can't handle watching you suffer like this." She was drowning in his grief. When you praise a widow for being strong, you are unknowingly putting pressure on her to maintain that strength. You're saying, "I need you to stay together for me." And she will comply. She will put on a mask. She will smile at the reception. She will comfort others at her own husband's funeral. And then she will go home alone, collapse on the bathroom floor, and sob until she throws up because she feels like she has no permission to fall apart. Don't tell her she's strong. Tell her it's okay to be weak. Quotable line, "Strength is a burden when grief needs permission to collapse. At least you had." This is what I call the comparison comfort. At least you had 50 years together. At least he didn't suffer long. At least you have your children. At least you're still young enough to remarry. Stop. Every "at least" diminishes the sacredness of her loss. She doesn't care that someone else had it worse. She doesn't care that some people lose their spouse after only 6 months. She lost her husband, period. It feels like comparing a stab wound to a paper cut. Both are pain, but right now she's bleeding out. Your "at least" is a band-aid on a severed artery. Quotable line, "There's no at least when someone's whole world just collapsed. God needed another angel." This is a theological nightmare. God is not short on angels. He created them. He does not need to kill a husband to fill a vacancy in heaven. This phrase makes God look like a cosmic kidnapper. The widow is already struggling to trust a God who allowed her husband to die, and now you're telling her God took him because he needed him more. No, death is the enemy. 1 Corinthians 15:26 calls it the last enemy that shall be destroyed. God does not delight in death. He weeps at it. Jesus wept at Lazarus' tomb, and he knew he was about to raise him. God is not a thief. He is a redeemer. Don't confuse the widow by painting God as a predator. Quotable line, "God didn't need another angel. He already had thousands, and he didn't need to take yours." Let's be very clear about something. Time does not heal all wounds. Jesus heals all wounds.
Time just helps you learn to carry the weight. When a woman loses her husband, she doesn't just lose a man, she loses her future. Their retirement plans, their grandchildren, their golden years, all of it dies with him. Time doesn't resurrect those dreams. Ecclesiastes 3:1 tells us there is a time to weep and a time to laugh. Notice it doesn't say weeping ends quickly. Grief doesn't expire on a calendar. You can't put a clock on someone's heartbreak. When you say time heals, you're implying she should be further along in her grief journey than she is. That's judgment disguised as comfort. Instead, say, "This will always be with you, but I will be with you through it." Quotable line, time doesn't heal grief. It just teaches you how to breathe with a broken heart. You need to move on. I've seen this happen. 6 months after the funeral, friends start getting uncomfortable. They've processed their own grief, but the widow is still in it. She still talks about him. She still wears her ring. She still has his voicemail saved. And someone says, "Don't you think it's time to move on?" What you're really saying is, your grief is making me uncomfortable, and I need you to get over it so I can feel better. Let me tell you a story from Scripture. Naomi lost her husband and both sons. When she returned to Bethlehem, the women of the city said, "Is this Naomi?" And she said, "Don't call me Naomi, call me Mara, for the Almighty has dealt very bitterly with me." She didn't move on, she was honest, and God didn't rebuke her for her grief, He provided for her through Ruth. God is not afraid of your tears. The widow doesn't need to move on, she needs to move forward, and that takes years. Quotable line, moving on is a myth, moving forward is a marathon. Let me know if you need anything. This one sounds kind, but it's actually the most passive phrase in the Christian vocabulary. It places all the burden on the widow. She is drowning in grief, paralyzed by decisions, exhausted from planning a funeral, and you're asking her to create a to-do list for you? She doesn't even know what she needs for dinner tonight. Turn to the book of Ruth. Boaz didn't say to Ruth, "Let me know if you need anything." He gave her water. He gave her food. He told his men to drop extra grain for her. He acted. James 2:16 says, "If a brother or sister be naked and destitute of daily food, and one of you say unto them, Depart in peace, be ye warmed and filled, notwithstanding ye give them not those things which are needful to the body, what doth it profit?" Don't ask what she needs, act. Bring a meal, mow her lawn, watch her kids, sit with her in silence. Quotable line, a widow doesn't need your open-ended offer, she needs your closed-fist action. Here's the bottom line, friend. The grieving widow is not a theological project, she is a broken heart. And your words are either a balm or a blade. Job 16:2 says, "Miserable comforters are ye all." Don't be a miserable comforter. Be the hands of Jesus. Quotable closing, before you speak to a grieving widow, ask yourself, will these words heal her heart or add another wound to her already shattered soul? Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever been a miserable comforter? Be honest. Which of these 8 words have you said and how did it land? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Share this video with your church, your small group, or anyone who needs to hear it before they speak to a grieving widow. And subscribe to Before the Last Moment, because we don't just warn you about the future, we equip you for the moments that matter most. Until next time, hold your words like they're gold and hold the grieving like they're Jesus. See you in the next one.